So today on the podcast, I'm very excited to have Miss Nadine Peever on. She is the founder and executive director at Bonfire, a health tech networking nonprofit that is focused on building real connections and working together in an interdisciplinary manner to tackle healthcare innovations and challenges. And she's also the founding partner at Ember Consulting Group, an organization that tries to bring together senior expertise across healthcare, public health, tech, policy, and communications to help healthcare organizations achieve their goals. Miss Johnson was at I was at one of the ACAG events and telling her a bit about the vlog, and then she was like, "Oh, I think you'd be into Bonfire." Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, Bonfire. Yeah, you would love it. Wait, are you in Atlanta for the summer?
No, I'm from Dolan.
Okay, yeah, that's right up 75 towards Tennessee.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I'll drive up. I've planned a bit of a fun day for myself there. So I'll get there early. Have you went to the Chai Box Cafe?
I haven't. I've heard really good things about it though.
Yeah, it's really cute. I'm craving their matcha, and then they have this rose pistachio tart. So I'm I'll stop there. I'll go to Labels. And then
yeah, there's so much to do right in that spot. So and I'll be at the happy hour. I try to get there a bit early. I mean, I'm definitely there almost a full hour early, usually to catch up with someone. But yeah, if you want to meet before that in person, I'm happy to. I've already kind of blocked off my calendar for a bit in the afternoon that day. Just because I don't know. I don't like people. I always feel bad if people get there before I do. So yeah, it's great. We've been hosting the happy hours for 4 years now. And I don't know. We always it brings out so many great people, and I'm lucky that I don't know. I feel very lucky for what the community's turned into.
Yeah, it definitely has become kind of big. I mean, I was saying on the website, it's were 18 events last year, and then 96 attended 3 or more, and then over 1,500 people total, 350 plus orgs. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it's crazy. So a bit of a background. I can give you the story of all of this. Basically, about 4 years ago, I was working for a pretty small startup based in Boston. It was 2022, and we'd been kind of in this pandemic space for a while. And I was just really desperate to get people together that are in the tech space. While I was at Athena Health for I think 7 years prior to joining the startup called Zeus. And at Athena, I was super active, super involved in company culture, bringing people together. And I really missed having that, being one person in Atlanta, whole team in another city. And then my boyfriend is a woodworker, so he also doesn't really I can't go on my rants about whatever in health tech with him, because he builds things, which is fabulous, but also just need coworkers. So my friend Alexa, who's at Accenture, she and I we just posted out to Health Tech Nerds, which is an online community, posted on LinkedIn that hey y'all, we're getting folks together at Scofflaw, which is a brewery over by my place over here on the west side of Atlanta. Getting folks together at Scofflaw, very informal. If you want to come, it's buy your own drinks, but would love to see y'all. And that was 4 years ago last month, I think. And from there we had we had an awesome turnout. It was 30 people or so. And then from there we're okay, well, why don't we just do this every month? Uh, and we were kind of figured out a way of doing it as like a rinse and repeat. Like we're able to make it something that we could do without too much planning. And having that consistent monthly get together, I think it's something that Atlanta was craving. And I don't know, I've made like really great friends through it. I've made phenomenal just like industry contacts. But it's all been really organic, and I think that's my style of network. I hate networking. I hate networking. I'll tell everyone this. I hate networking, and then they look at me and they're like, "Why do you host a networking event every month?" It's not networking. It's like getting together for drinks with people that that are interested in the same things as you. And I don't know. It's much more my speed. So it was a bit of a ramble there, but it's been amazing. We've seen it go from this like really informal, I mean, it's always been I like to think it's always been very informal. It's gone from just like something without a name to having branding. And we've gone from just these happy hours to we've done like webinars. We've partnered with different conferences. We've hosted coffee events. We've hosted sober events. We've hosted all sorts of different things to try and kind of reach people where they're at. And more recently, I was reflecting on how far we've come, and I mean, I'm just really proud. We became a 501c3 nonprofit about a month ago, and we've got a board of directors, and I don't know, it's really, really amazing stuff. People in DC have heard of us, folks in other states have heard of us, and it's always like shocking to me because I don't know, I feel like we're still this like little tiny organization, but it's really cool.
That's awesome. So, what has the journey been of becoming a 501c3 organization?
It has been an adventure. 501c3 just determination has been, or a 501c3 like recognized organization. It's been something that we've considered, or I've considered for like a very long time. So I mentioned we've been doing this for 4 years. Back in about 2.5 years ago, we launched like the bonfire branding and really tried to become this like legitimate entity. And since then it's been at this decision of like, do we want to be an LLC? Or do we want to be a nonprofit? And we started out as an LLC, just for the sake of it's easy. It's really easy to be an LLC. Anyone can start one. I mean, I've got now multiple. It's not a difficult task. You're not having to follow like there's not a ton of guidelines that you need to follow. But there's also like, I don't know, there's pros and cons of both. To become a nonprofit, we made that decision for a couple of different reasons. One of them was because it was more aligned with what we're doing. We are like a community-based organization. We like to think of us as almost like I say public service. We're doing something good for the community. We're not trying to make money. We're not trying to be this like enormous corporation. This has always just been a passion project. So there is like that alignment. And then also it helps us it means that we can like apply for grants. It's more like appealing for corporations to partner with us because it's like a tax write-off. So it's helpful. Or it's yeah. So it's, I say tax write-off. It's like a donation. So, or can be a donation. So it's like just, it makes things a little bit easier. It also makes things like a million times more difficult in that we had to pull together all the documentation to apply to become a nonprofit. We like maintain all of our records. I've got a board of directors. I've got like bylaws that I had to get signed off on, a conflict of interest policy. I don't know, there's just like a lot of admin that comes with running a nonprofit. But I think it like at the end of the day, I feel like it was the right decision. The other piece that complicates it is also I run like consulting business. And so making sure that there's like a very clear divide between Bonfire and then Ember is the consulting group that I run. Both of those entities were originally underneath an LLC. We split them up so that we've got the 501c3 and then the for-profit LLC. And I mean, you're catching me in the early stages of it, and it is not easy. It's really, really hard. And some days I'm like, what am I thinking? What was I thinking? But I'm passionate about both, and I think at the end of the day, it makes it worth it.
That's awesome. So, you guys came up with your board of directors very recently. I think I saw the LinkedIn post being for like last week. So, what was that process like establishing that board? Like, when did you, was it tied to becoming a 501c3 org that you guys had to have that? And like, how did you guys choose the directors for it?
Yeah. Choosing our board of directors I'm really lucky with who I landed with or who I landed on. The process started about a month before we became like I had already filed the paperwork or our application to become a nonprofit, and I'd already presented. So like the leading up to becoming a nonprofit or applying for it, I had meetings with people that I trust, ranging from like friends to like business colleagues. Kelly Johnson was one of those people that I included in those conversations. She's been just a phenomenal mentor over the years, a very informal mentor, but it was great getting to surface these thoughts to people that I trust, who I know could come to me and give me like unbiased feedback. So there's this like long leading up or like a lead up to applying, and then so you can apply for your nonprofit status before you even have a board. As I was deciding, or like during this process at one point, like I sat down and tried to figure out like who's in my circle that I would trust, and who has some kind of nonprofit experience, and who's connected and who shows up. Choosing a chairman was one of the more difficult pieces, or I said chairman, a chair of our board was really tough. You're putting all of your, like, I've been building this out over the past 4 years, and it can be really nerve-wracking, kind of assigning, like, making someone the boss of this thing that you've been essentially entirely in control of for so long. And so I sat down and ran through my list of people, and my friend Ben Huffman immediately came to mind. I was originally thinking of having him as a business partner for the consulting group, sat down with him and basically proposed that we make him chair of our board. And he was all in. So I got very, very lucky there. And then just like over like the past couple months, I've had folks reach out and say, hey, I want to be more involved with Bonfire. And so again, I like sat down, thought about who might be a good fit. And that's how we ended up with Mary Jacobson, who's our secretary. And then Jamore Harrison, who is our treasurer. We also wanted someone who, I don't know, we always think about like, you don't just think about the here and now with a nonprofit or really any company. You're thinking about like, what does a year or 2 years or 5 years from now look like? And so I wanted to bring in someone, I don't know how to describe the last person, but Kelsey Supple, she's a grad student at Emory working on her MHA. So y'all should definitely connect on Thursday. But she's like has phenomenal energy. She's super duper smart. And also like, I don't know, everyone loves her. There's like, she's amazing. And she's also someone I could see being an executive director of our nonprofit in a couple of years, or whenever I like decided I want to do this. And she's wonderful. And so that's how we kind of landed with her. I don't know, everyone in our group is like amazing. And it's not always easy to recruit a board, but these folks were like, I got very, very lucky.
That's awesome. So I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but can you elaborate on like how you guys choose like the specifics of the events you'll hold, and then who's involved in like the idea generation to execution process?
Yeah, a lot of it. So let's see. We have our monthly happy hours that stayed really consistent. We've got a host, 3 Taverns who's graciously offered to host us every single month, which is like the best location. Early on with all of this, we were choosing a new bar every single month, and it was a complete disaster. I mean, it was fine. But like we very consistently have this monthly happy hour. I could tell you almost like we always target the second Thursday of the month. It's almost always going to be at the same spot. Sometimes we have to rearrange things due to conferences, but that's like the one consistent piece. We started doing the Spark, which is this kind of like TEDx style event where we get someone super smart to come out and they speak on a topic that they're passionate about that's related to the industry. And we are trying to get into a good cadence of doing those every quarter. We've got the next one coming up in August. And we also graciously were offered a free event space at Manuel's Tavern, which is also like wonderful. Other like ad hoc events, oftentimes they are planned. Let's see. Things will get kicked out, or like things end up on our calendar oftentimes due to other events in Atlanta. Like if there's a conference, we'll try to host something that's like along the same, like a happy hour, like an evening before or after, to try and bring together folks while they're in town. And then, sorry, I feel like I'm just like rambling here. And then ad hoc events, it's really someone will come to us and say, hey, I've got this really great idea. How can we pull this off? We'll sit down, we'll think through, okay, what do we currently have on the books? Like, what do we have to do between now and, I don't know, like the next 6 months? And I'm trying to get into a better routine of having event chairs. So if someone comes to me with an idea, and it's actually something that we're in the process of doing right now, someone says, hey, I want to do this, we figure out a time, like let's target let's target early October. And here are dates that you can't use. Like, let's avoid these weeks because of XYZ. And then I'm trying to give people the reins to just plan it and execute it on their own. So what we're doing we've got an event coming up in, I think, early October. Sarah Kerrigan, who's conveniently my business partner at Ember, but she's also senior advisor for Bonfire, but she's co-chairing this event with Darren Glass, who's another great member of our community. And yeah, they're taking lead on it. And I'm essentially acting as an advisor on the project for them. So it's a bit of a mix. I'm trying to be very open to like giving people control because I'm a bit of a control freak. But it's like there's a lot that goes into it, from choosing the right date to finding a location, because a lot of places charge. Like, it's very expensive to find free space. It's expensive to find free space. It's expensive to find space in Atlanta to host an event. It's taken us 4 years to find some really solid partnerships here, to make some really solid facility, like event space partnerships. And yeah, I don't know, a lot of just like believing that it's going to happen sometimes is enough.
That's fair. Earlier, did you mention Minos?
No. Or did I may have fumbled on my. We have our event at 3 Taverns.
Okay.
And Manuel's Tavern.
Okay.
That's where we host the Spark. It's over in the Highlands.
Well, where's the Highlands? I'm not familiar.
Yeah.
No, you know, really.
It's let's see. I mean, Virginia Highlands. It is. I'm trying to think. Have you been to like Dark Horse? Have you been to any of the have you been to any of the bars over here? It's off of Ponce. Like Virginia, it's off Virginia, and North Highland is kind of like the intersection of like the Highlands. Emmanuel's is off of North Highland and Freedom. I'm so sorry. I know I'm rambling on this.
No, that's what you have to do.
Yeah.
So, okay. And then I had a question about this one statement I saw on Bonfire's website saying that sponsorships and donations make our programming possible and free to the community. And so there's no membership fees as well. So was this always the case? Was it fairly easy to be able to garner this kind of community support to financially support this org fully?
Yeah, I've told people for the longest time, like, we make no money. We make very little money. We have thought through the business model many, like, I rotate on it every single month, a little bit less now that we're a 501c3. We've thought about doing a membership, but it didn't feel right because we wanted to make sure that we were offering, like, we had something real to offer. Not that what we have right now isn't real. We've tried to keep all of our events free. We recently had added like a pay what you want or like support Bonfire event, like option. Sorry, whenever you register for events. Yeah, our monthly happy hours are always free. We did start charging for the Spark because a lot of planning goes into it. So we've tried to, what's tricky with building a community and trying to do it very authentically and genuinely, and like, I'm not a salesperson. I've told people this for years and years and years. And I don't like what I didn't love about traditional networking is feeling like every interaction was like a sales interaction. Like there was something like trying to figure out what they wanted from me and I'm sure they're thinking the same thing. Like, what does she want? I always try to be very transparent if I'm trying to work with someone. So when it comes to bringing in corporate sponsors, we always try to do it in a way that isn't like icky. we try to work with organizations, and this is the same like with newsletter sponsorships. It's like anytime we take money, even through consulting, I try to be true to this as well, is work with people and companies that we believe in and that we trust. We don't, when we've had folks sponsor happy hours and events, we've really pushed for like no sales pitches. Like we don't want it to be like a sales meeting. We want people to be there and to be able to feel like they can have real conversations. That's not to say, like, a lot of times these real conversations that you build are like business connections in the future, but it means that you're like setting a foundation of trust from the very beginning. And that's what I've liked about it. And so we've shifted to this because we don't want to charge people memberships. We feel we're like strategic about, like, I say strategic, we're smart. We're selective about the events that we charge for. We accept donations during, like, for people whenever they're buying tickets. And yeah, like when we're talking to corporations, we try to be very like, it's a very thoughtful process. It does. I think that we leave a lot of money on the table because of this. But for where we're at right now, I think it's the smart thing, or it's what feels right to me. It's not to say things won't evolve in the future, but again, as I'm very protective of the integrity and the, like, what we've curated or created, and you can lose trust in a moment. It's very easy to lose trust, and it's not something that we take lightly. So one day, I think about the membership thing all the time. I'll probably still continue thinking about the membership. I've had a lot of folks encourage doing a membership, but I think that there's a couple different moving pieces until we get there. But at the end of the day, also, like, our bread and butter, which is the monthly happy hours, those will always continue to be free.
That's very fair. So have you guys come up with a stable price point for charging for the Sparks?
Yeah, we've settled on, let's see, for students, we were either doing, I think, 50% off, so tickets were like $7, with the base price of the tickets being $15. And then there was when we last hosted it, there was an option to again, like, keep the fire burning, I think is what we called it, where you would pay $25, so a little bit more, but it just, again, helps us with programming and helps just, yeah, financially fund it. We've thought through that price point, I mean, a lot. We wanted to make something that was accessible for students. And so that's where we had the, like, 50% off discount code that we were able to provide to Emory students. And then, but also, like, recognizing that, again, like, a lot of hours go into hosting these things and planning it. And so that's why, again, we had a bit of like a tiered pricing there. It's not easy figuring out pricing for, like, any product, even like with our donation, like when for our free events where we offer, like, if people want to donate, we'd gone from saying, okay, we could do like a $10 ticket to like, which again is it's strictly a donation to the community. But now I think we're at like just donate whatever you want. And so it's something that we're constantly kind of like playing around with. In fact, actually, no, I think now you can still, it may be like free or you pay $10, but there's always that free option for the happy hours. It gets tricky. I'm not like, what's fun about like where I'm at with all of this is, well, so I have ADHD and I'm interested in a lot of things, which is really good if you're a consultant, which I do, or if you work for a startup, because both of those you end up getting to wear a lot of hats. Sometimes the hats that you wear when you are starting a company are not hats that you like to wear. Or they're like not hats that you have any experience with. And so that's just I get to learn every single day. Every day with Bonfire and with Ember, I'm learning about pricing strategies. I'm learning about, I don't know, like marketing techniques. I mean, I have a degree in marketing and I never thought I was ever going to use it, and I do use it now. I'm learning about, there's like legal things that I like, legal requirements. I'm reading contracts. Like there's so many different things that, granted, I've spent a lot of time reading contracts in past roles, but like there's a lot of pieces that I wasn't ever expecting, or like there's a lot of roles that I wasn't ever expecting to step into. And now I touch every single part of the business in some capacity, both with the nonprofit and with the consulting group. That was not, I answered your question and a little bit more.
So, switching to the hackathons you guys have, so can you give a bit more info about previous ones you guys have had and, you know, what they've been able to create?
We haven't yet done a hackathon. It's like, it's on our roadmap. We're hoping to do one this fall. The goal is to, there's a couple different ways of doing hackathons, but ours, what we're envisioning is one that's, you don't have to be technical to participate. It's really more about just, we have, our community spans not just health tech, it spans clinicians, clinicians, public health, researchers, policy experts, people like me. We have, which I don't even know what bucket I fit into, to be honest, but like founders, like we kind of touch the whole spectrum. And so when as we're planning this hackathon, which again, we're still landing on a date, we're wanting it to be something that we can bring all of the different perspectives in to solve a problem, which is kind of my passion. I love that.
It definitely sounds really interesting.
Thanks. I just need, honestly, like I need more hours in the day to like do a lot of these things, but we're getting there.
That's fair. Okay, so moving into the process of building Ember Consulting Group with your friend Sarah Kerrigan, especially as you guys just opened for business 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. So the process of this, I've been doing consulting a bit through, originally when Bonfire was an LLC. I ran consulting projects through there. We had this like advisory piece. I had this advisory piece. Sarah and I had these conversations on and off for like, or an ongoing conversation. And we've been pretty good friends for like a little over a year. I've known her for many, many years. We reconnected last April. And we talked about this consulting piece. She's got her own consulting business, Carrion Health Strategies. And then we've always thought about like the interaction between consulting and Bonfire. Over the summer, we were like, okay, let's split this out, because we always felt I mean, it's as I mentioned earlier in the conversation, felt like the consulting piece and the community piece needed to be split. They're different. I don't know. They just like there's different brand strategies that even go along with it. Especially as we're considering going after like federal RFPs. And so Sarah and I, we sat down and I would write a business plan for like over the summer. It was like I was writing the business plan for Bonfire. She would start writing the business plan for Ember, and then we would like swap. And so it was very, very, very collaborative. And what's been great with her is that like with Ember, she brings in this public health expertise and I bring in the health tech expertise, and we're really able to look at projects or like problems from this like holistic view. And she brings in ideas that like I would never consider and vice versa. And we just have different approaches to everything from like contracting through like project execution, which I think is great and really has been phenomenal for like our clients. And so, I mean, yeah, like over the summer, we went like back and forth and really like we're able to fully collaborate on what this business looks like. And I don't know, I feel, again, I'm very lucky that I get to work with one of my closest friends every day. Sorry, the piece I would want to cut out is the like CDC messiness.
Show.
Sorry. It's always like it's always so tricky with that kind of thing.
So I did see on Ember's website that you guys will be facilitating cross-sector roundtables, coalition launches, executive retreats, leadership summits. So can you tell me a little bit more about like what you guys have planned for these kinds of events?
Yeah, a lot of these, so with the consulting piece, that is, I mean, that's stuff that other organizations come to us to help them execute. So a lot of this, it's like separated, like Bonfire hosts events open up to the public. This tends to be stuff that is more like a client will hire us to, they want to host a round table. They want to, I don't know, like I've done so many cultural, like company culture initiatives or supported so many company culture initiatives. And just all of our experience with Bonfire, we're able to, when companies are looking to bring together folks that have different expertise, I've got a phenomenal network. Sarah has a phenomenal network that we can tap into to say, hey, we need experts in substance use disorder. How do we let's figure out who the right people are to bring to this roundtable. Do we want a mix of clinicians? Do we want to mix it like our clinicians and engineers? Like, how are we facilitating that? And that's something that we work with clients to figure out or to execute on. We've also we're partnering with, or we have a client that's they're wanting to host the Spark. And so that's like an interesting like Bonfire, Ember, and it's the Partnership for Public Service, which is a phenomenal group. We're hosting an event with them next month in August. And they found us. I don't know how they found us, but they reached out a couple months ago and they were like, hey, we saw what you guys are doing with the Spark. How can we we would love to host something like that. And so we have sat down with them, worked with them on figuring out the right speaker, working with them on topics, picking, we've just owned the process from start to finish, getting a lot of really valuable input from their team and kind of collaborating on that. It's been a lot of fun. They're a phenomenal group to work with.
Are you referring to Partnership for Public Service?
Yeah. Yeah, we're working with them. on an event that it's going live very soon. And so that's happening at the end of August.
Okay.
And so that's a piece that we are, as we've been thinking about the services, again, we're a month into all of this, as we've been thinking about, okay, like what are we awesome at? And sort of the public awareness piece is has proven to be something that we love doing. We've had this newsletter we've had this newsletter for the past 6 months or so where we share news like healthcare, health tech related news. And so public awareness of what's going on a federal level, or just like whatever our partners are passionate about that they're trying to get out more broadly. It's been a fun space to work in. Yeah, Partnership for Public Service, they're doing a lot of really great work.
Awesome. So you used to be a healthcare interoperability principal.
Yeah.
Right? So can you talk more about that role and then how that led into supporting you in creating Ember?
Yeah. So prior to, let's see, almost 2 years ago, I worked at a company called HTD, and I joined the team as an interoperability principal. So my background, my background is chaotic. My work experience is chaotic. And that's just let's preface it with that. I did a lot of interoperability work at Athena Health. I was leading integration projects and managing strategic partnerships with Quest Diagnostics and LabCorp. So doing a lot of lab integrations. Basically, it's flow of information from an electronic health record to the lab, and like that bidirectional flow of information for whenever patients are having lab work done. So like going to your doctor's office, having blood drawn, having that sent to a lab to spin around. They run the test, they figure out, okay, what's going on here. And then getting that test result back to the provider in the patient portal, making everything easily understandable and formatted in a way that you can detect trends. So if you're looking at like patients needs to know about their cholesterol and they're trying to manage that, making it so that the provider can see what's going on over time and making sure that you're improving. So from there, I became an expert in these lab integrations. And then while I was at Zeus, similarly I was doing integration partnerships, partnering with anyone that has patient information. So looking at health information exchanges, looking at SureScripts with medication data or prescription data, looking at organizations that have social determinant of health data to help clients that are working in value-based care, helping them understand their patient populations and figuring out who they should be targeting. There's so much information out there. And so I've become this over the years, I've become this expert on who has patient information. What is this like? If you look at a map of the country, where is there who do you need to work with in each state to get this national coverage? Because when you're working for an organization that has patients across the country, you need to be able to have that it's the breadth of information and the depth of information. While I was at Zeus, I met my friend Brendan Keeler, best person I know, phenomenal, like the smartest person ever when it comes to health tech, like interoperability. And he'd asked me if I wanted to join their team at HTD. And so I took him up on that offer. While I was there, I mean, it was there for, it was a shorter stint. But while I was there, I just got to learn a ton about, or just deepen my knowledge on different exchange, like different data exchanges. I got to deepen my knowledge on TEFCA, understanding payer provider data exchange. Like there's so much out there when it comes to it. And so I really got to deepen that knowledge. I also decided I didn't want to work for, I wanted to be my own boss. And so I decided to step away. That was like, I mean, HTD, like they helped me. I learned so much from that, both about the industry and about who I am. And yeah, I had made the decision that I really wanted to explore what running my own company looked like. And so I've remained, like Brendan and I are still great friends. And yeah, he's been a phenomenal influence in my life.
That's awesome. So also on the Ember website, it said that you have focus areas in TEFCA readiness and health tech policy. So do you mind elaborating and giving examples as to certain cases with TEFCA readiness you've dealt with or specific policies?
Yeah. Over the years, I've done a lot of, I guess, let's see. I've gotten to dive into kind of like I've gotten to dive into a lot of health tech policy as it relates to interoperability standards. It was important as I was looking at partnerships or in different partnership roles, making sure that I think understanding what can and can't be shared is crucial as you're building out a patient record. There's things like 42 CFR Part 2, which is specially regulated data as you think about like the behavioral health space. I think understanding also the history of some of these regulations, like how behavioral health was left out of the High Tech Act. That was, I mean, that was what, 2011. High tech is the reason why we have why all of our providers are using electronic health records. But behavioral health, so you're like psychiatrist, doesn't, like there was no incentive to be able to adopt it. And so you've seen like a lag in adoption there. And then of course, like with the interoperability policy, like TEFCA is the biggest piece, or it's like one of the bigger pieces now. Understanding, okay, what are the requirements for, like, what is required to participate, or like, is it, well, are providers required to participate in it? What is it enabling? I mean, TEFCA is just, it's a network of networks. I think there's a lot of amazing possibilities with it. Seeing adoption, I mean, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. There's a lot of really great things with TEFCA. Certainly, for specific examples, I've helped. I've helped health tech organizations understand the different capabilities of, let's see, I worked with a company who's trying to understand who are their competitors, what functionality, what do their competitors offer? And then let me restart that. Worked with a health tech company that was really interested in payer provider data sharing. Part of that is what's the competitive landscape, but then also, and this was before, like, this is a while back, so this is earlier in this administration, trying to figure out, okay, what are we expecting to happen with TEFCA? What will be required for payer provider data exchange? That also goes beyond TEFCA. It goes into like CMS regulations. So CMS 57, but goes more into the payer provider data exchange. It requires there's just more specific requirements outlined around what information needs to be exchanged if you're supporting Medicaid populations. So there's a lot that goes into it. It's really fun and interesting. Is like policies, it's been a bit of a side quest for me, but it's a fun, to me, it's a fun, interesting space that I've been lucky enough to get to dive into. Intentionally having to stay vague about like clients that I've worked with because, yeah. But it is like understanding, okay, like what are they trying to do, and what are we seeing from the administration, and where, I mean, this administration is very like anti-regulation, and so it's been interesting to navigate.
For sure. I actually hadn't heard of the High Tech Act.
Oh, it's okay. It was like, yeah, I was gonna say, like, it came out whenever I was just like graduating college, so that was like, it was like early into my career that everything was changing, which is kind of cool. But it is fun to think about like the history of like, because people say like, why is behavioral health so far behind? And it's because, yeah, they weren't, like, companies aren't going to do things out of the goodness of their heart. They're not going to make expensive changes because it's the right thing to do. There's got to be some kind of incentive, like financially, to do it.
So what the act was to transition like healthcare to digital, right?
Yep. Yeah. So the High Tech Act, sorry, I should have explained that better. The High Tech Act was, it was Obama era, and the goal of that was to get providers, it incentivized providers to go from paper records to electronic records, which is why around that time you see this huge boom in electronic health record companies. It's like, it's interesting seeing some of the big like COVID also, we saw like a huge boom in digital health solutions as folks were trying to figure out like how to improve telehealth operations. And I think that's been incredibly beneficial as we think about rural health. I tell people who are like, oh, I don't want to get into technology. You can't avoid it. Like, I think even working again in like with rural health populations, technology is like, you need it more there than you need it anywhere. But then you also get into issues with like broadband access, like internet access. And so I think it's like there's a lot of different pieces that you kind of have to tackle to be able to solve some of these bigger problems.
For sure. So do you have any future goals or milestones for either Ember or Bonfire to hit, like such as potential partnerships between Bonfire, Atlanta, and a similar org in another geographic region?
For Bonfire, I think a lot about launching an affiliate group in another city. So like a Bonfire Boston or a Bonfire Portland. There's different cities that I've got a short list of cities that we have thought about, or that we're thinking about launching a third location in. There are also, like, with that, I mean, I want to make sure that there's some like parts that I want to figure out and feel confident in before I have anyone else try and do this in another city, because so again, it's like, how do we, if someone's gonna do it, they need to be able to, it has to be financially sustainable. And so we're wanting to kind of get it perfect here, and then we'll scale it to other cities. We think a lot about university partnerships. How are we better supporting like student populations? There's so many different great universities here in Atlanta. What do those, like, how are we partnering with those schools? Even like UGA, like, maybe would we ever want to launch a bonfire at UGA? Because I live too far to be able to do that every single month, but like, maybe that's the first city that we go after. And then with Ember, like, we're thinking about it, like, right now it's Sarah and I, or it's me and Sarah. How are we growing to, like, and Sarah and I have specific skill sets and expertise, but would we ever want to bring in like a clinician as a consultant? Like, how is our bench growing? And how is the team growing? And so that's going to be another milestone that we're looking at, is just growing the team beyond just the two of us. We have a ways to go there, but we've got some really good folks that we've been chatting with on that front.
Awesome. So I wanted to ask you about your role as a market access director at Encina a few years ago.
Yeah.
And how like health tech and law intersected in that role.
Yeah, so that was so in my role as market access director, a lot of it was helping clients understand what markets they might want to grow into, what states they might want to expand to, and helping them with that growth strategy. That ties into, that's where a lot of the policy played a big role in that. Different states have different regulatory policy environments as it relates to data exchange, as it relates to like how contracted employees, like what are favorable environments for corporate companies that have contracted employees? What are, like, understanding, I don't know, thinking about like what states have incentives or like initiatives related to, let's see, like diabetes management. Because if you're working with a company that supports like chronic illness, or wanting to find, or they're more likely, I don't know, it's profitable or it's smart for them to go work in states that have I'm trying to figure out the best way of explaining this. States that incentivize payers to improve diabetes outcomes. So there's, like, as we're thinking about geez, I'm like gonna fumble over my words here. As we're thinking about like Medicaid populations, payers oftentimes they're incentivized to improve like certain HEDIS measures. And so So we'll find states, oftentimes we'll like look at states, okay, what states have shown that they're prioritizing focus on or prioritizing different chronic illnesses, and encourage like, and who do I know anyone in that state that I could introduce my client to? And all of these different pieces, there's so many, all these different factors go into encouraging or like offering this like market growth strategy. And that, again, that's where the policy and regulation piece comes into play, as you're thinking about, data exchange regulations. There's so much that goes into it. I'm very like calculated, where I basically would like sit down with a spreadsheet and like pull together at the top, like have columns for like the different factors that I think create a favorable environment for a company to grow in, or a company of that type to expand into. And then I have my list state by state, and then I go through every single column to figure out, okay, which states meet this requirement, and then I eventually get like a short list of states that I can go further in depth with to encourage clients. Okay, here's where I think you should go. It's interesting. It's an interesting space to be in. I don't think I like that I know how to do this. But again, I'm not like a salesperson, and so fortunately that's not what I'm doing in my consulting work.
And then I want to ask, I know you had this role several years ago, but I recently had a UI UX design manager that like worked with accessibility. So I was just wondering how your work as an application specialist at Meditech worked with that field and making features accessible.
Yeah, that was more around, that's so funny. It was like my first job job within the industry. That role was more like account management, helping solve problems that clients were having. So we didn't do a ton in like the UI, like in the accessibility space. Something that, I mean, in that world more recently, I mean, we consider accessibility as it relates to like building out our website and building out presentations to ensure that that you can see if like folks that are colorblind can read our website. That's like how I mostly think about it, but I admittedly haven't done really much of that at all in my work. But it's a really cool space, and I'm glad that there are folks that are focused on it as it relates to building out new solutions. Anything that patients are using needs to be accessible. We need to make it. We meet patients where they're at. If you're a patient, there's a million different things. Like, we need to make it easy for patients to get the care that they need, and that starts with an app that they're using.
For sure. This actually reminds me of on Saturday, I was at my apartment complex's pool, and then I saw like this by the warm pool, and I was like, just asking Gemini, I was like, what is this? But it's a pool lift
That's awesome.
So they can be ADA compliant, but I was like, yeah, I mean,
I think it's like, that has been like, you at the earlier beginning of this, it sounded like you've been thinking about like all these different paths that you could go down with your career. And I mean, in college, I studied marketing, but then was doing city planning as my job. I was working at a River Valley Regional Commission. This is stuff that's like not even on my resume because I had this job so long ago. But I was planning bike to work day. And again, this is like 20 years ago at this point. But part of that was also like I was working with people who were writing, they were trying to get funding to build sidewalks. And I was so passionate, like I so badly at that point wanted to build sidewalks for a living. I mean, not like literally go out there, but I wanted to make our world just more accessible to everyone. Like right now where I'm living, there's a restaurant like 2 blocks away, but they didn't have a sidewalk to that restaurant from our place, like between our house or between our neighborhood and the restaurant. And it's a really busy road. And so we would drive to this restaurant that was like, again, it's like 2 or 3 blocks away. They finally built a sidewalk, and it's such a game changer. And so for the longest time, I was like, I want to build the infrastructure that no one notices unless it's missing. And that goes hand in hand with where I've landed in my career. Like if you'd told me 20 years ago while I was in college that I was going to be doing like working in health tech, that's nothing I ever considered whenever I was studying marketing. I didn't even know what I wanted to do back then. And it's just like the universe. It was like a friend from college was like, hey, do you want to come work at my company at Meditech? Like we're hiring. And I was like, oh, I was getting ready to move to Seattle to go. I was planning on just being a waitress out there and figuring it out. And then I found a job here that would pay me money. And I was like, sure, why not? That sounds interesting. And that was like, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And then I've been doing this for 15 years and I love it. And as a patient, it's the same as the sidewalk story is like when it works right, it's amazing. Like when your provider has the right information in front of them, when you're referred to a specialist and you don't have to have another x-ray or blood work done because the records or the test that you had 2 weeks prior with your PCP, those float over to the specialist, and that means that you're not paying more money for that. And also getting blood work done is not very fun. So like it's a better experience for the patient. It saves you money, and trying to retell your story every time to a new clinician can be exhausting. But when the sidewalks are there, it makes a huge difference. I say that as like I have endometriosis and had surgery like 2 summers ago, and it's great. It's fine. But like the process of getting diagnosed, like there's just so much that goes into, we realize it, but like going to my original doctor, scheduling like ultrasounds, and then figuring out that, okay, I need to go see a specialist and making sure that my specialist has all that information. Any providers that I've seen following that, like I need to make sure that they have the background. And what I love about interoperability is that like by and large throughout this process, providers have been able to see my records. It's amazing. It wasn't like this 20 years ago. It's really great. I'm glad that we have sidewalks for healthcare.
For sure. So, you were also the Women's Leadership Forum co-chair as February 2018, and then became the Atlanta chapter's co-chair that January. So, yeah. Tell me a bit more about the work you did for those organizations and the work they do.
Yeah, so I was doing that through Athena. I have always been really passionate about company culture, about lifting up of other women. And so I wanted to support the Women's Leadership Forum within Athena Health. And I co-chaired it from the Atlanta office, and it was great. It was really fun. It was fun to pull together programming for our office, try and figure out what we could do that other offices might be able to also do. And then, I did the same thing while I was at Zeus. I spun up our can't even remember what we called it, but it was essentially the women's leadership employee resource group. And it's really just I would listen to podcasts or join whatever kind of webinar and learn something. If I learned something, being able to bring it back to the group, or just host a conversation on a podcast or an article or whatever that I thought was interesting that I think women could benefit from. I don't know, it's just creating an environment that's I want to help other women thrive. I've been in spaces where it's felt really competitive. Being in this industry, I've been in environments that didn't feel always as welcoming for women, and there's so much space at the top, and I don't know why you would ever want to not lift up the other people in your life that are doing awesome things. We can all be great, and I just want to create a world where, whoever I'm working with, I want to be able to lift them up and help them be the best version that they can be. And so, I even think about that in Atlanta there's a women in technology group. And so hoping to get more involved with them to figure out how do we create a space where women are thriving in this industry. We already are kicking ass, let's be real. But what can I do to support other women here?
That's awesome. And then also, just talking about your experience being involved in the Technology Association of Georgia.
It's been a minute since I've done a whole lot with them, to be honest. They're a great group in Atlanta. I just haven't had the bandwidth, but I think they're hosting an event soon, and it looks awesome. It's been a while.
That's fair. So I wanted to take a bit of a go back in time a little bit and then talk about how you started off as a marketing major in undergrad at Columbus State University. And then those first 2 or 3 years, you were working in planning, marketing, and as an English language assistant for the French Ministry of National Education. So we transitioned from that and then getting involved to the health tech or healthcare space.
Yeah. My life is chaos. And so in college, I studied marketing because I wanted to work in a fancy office, and marketing looked really cool and trendy. It was the dumbest thing ever. I was not ever passionate about marketing. But I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I knew that a business degree would be versatile. And so I was like, all right, let's do and I had friends that were doing marketing. And so I did not go into that field with thinking, oh, I'm gonna this is what I'm passionate about. It just made sense at the time. After college, so I grew up in Canada, and I grew up going to a French immersion school, so speaking French from the time I was in kindergarten through when I moved here whenever I was a teenager. After college, I went and taught English in France. It was the best decision I've ever made in my entire life. Anyone who's trying to think about what they might want to do next and aren't confident, there's programs like that in France. France requires, if you speak French, it's really, really helpful to get into the program. It's through the TAPIF, TAPIF. And it was the best. That was like hands down the best thing I've ever done in my life. It has nothing to do with anything I've ever done in my career, other than like I still talk to those people. There's like a couple of friends I made through that program, and I talk to them every single day. One of them is in my roommate at the time, Carrie. She lives in Ohio, and she's in health policy, and so she and I talk a lot about what's going on in the world, but like we don't work together in any official capacity. But those relationships, even though they haven't done like they haven't necessarily affected my career trajectory, other than like these are my sounding board for like any life decision I make. So in which case they probably are pretty influential, because they've always encouraged me to like pursue what I'm passionate about. But they're some of my closest friends. So like if you can go and spend some time abroad, I mean, I made no money at all. Like I made $1,000 a month, I think, at the time. It's not a way to make a lot of money, but it's like the hands down, like it'll change your life. They have a program, I think, in Spain and of course, like South Korea. I know a lot of folks who went to South Korea and taught. It's amazing. Yeah, everyone should do it. You should do it. It's the best.
I've definitely heard of programs similar to that, or I think the Peace Corps also.
Yeah.
Of that.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I did it. I was there for like a school year. But I also think it looks good on your resume. It's certainly a conversation starter. But it's just like, I don't know. They're my closest friends. It's like my like personal board of directors is kind of what I consider them. Also, it's folks that I run any big life changes through, and I don't know. I love them. I love those people.
Awesome. I was actually, because I'm debating because like I guess naturally I would graduate next December, or
Yeah.
if I wanted to accelerate a little bit, I could do it in the spring and still not have to take summer classes. But I mean, one of the things was like, if I do take a gap semester in the spring, like I don't know what to do really, because I think all of the interesting internships I'm finding relating to like health tech or health tech law, it's mostly in the summer, and I think the CDC has one related to that, but it's very limited stuff. So I was like, I was thinking, I was like, I do like traveling, but I don't know. So if you have any ideas.
Yeah. For the spring, I can think about it. I mean, if we have an internship opportunity, but traveling wise, I'd have to, I know that mine was for like the school year. So I like moved out there in September and came back in May. But which like, I mean, I would encourage you to even just like do that if you can make that work, or like to look into those programs for the school year. It may seem like at the time I remember thinking, oh my God, this is going to set me back so far. And it doesn't at all. It will have no, like, I mean, I haven't been, again, like out of my 20s, I haven't been in that world for a minute, but like like my friends from that program, they're all very successful, and you shouldn't be afraid to take a year to do something like to go after one of these teaching programs, especially if you are thinking about doing grad school too. A lot of folks went and taught English, and then the following year they went to grad school, and it all worked out just fine. It's like it helps you understand people a lot whenever you go out and surround yourself with like folks from different countries speaking different languages. And I don't know, I feel like I'm a more resilient person because I've just been able to, I don't know, it pushes you outside of your comfort zone a whole lot. You should do it. You should do one of these programs.
Yeah, it could be fun. I do like being in teaching roles.
Yeah.
So it could be fun. The only hesitation I had was, I am passionate about English, but then I don't know if it would be super interesting to teach like the basics and like the grammar and whatnot.
So I worked with high school students, and I was not passionate about teaching or English at all. What I did was my approach to it was figuring out ways that, I was, I think, like 22 at the time, and my students were all like, they were in high school, they're a little bit closer to my age. Some of my students were literally like in their 20s. Because I was teaching some like post high school stuff, but I just found ways of like what's interesting to like what are high school students interested in. I never really taught grammar. I figured out ways just to get them to speak English, and some of that was referencing like what's going on in pop culture. What is like, let's translate some of these English songs that you're listening to, or not translate, but like let's dissect some popular English songs. Figuring out, for me, it was a lot of like figuring out how to make English more approachable, because it can be really intimidating to learn another language, and it's like not always easy. But yeah, I never taught grammar because I don't know, I had a lot of freedom to do whatever I wanted with my students, and I really wanted them to just be okay speaking. That's like the first step.
That is true. It is very intimidating. I'm actually taking ASL 1 this summer, and
Oh, no way. That's really amazing.
yeah, I think it's cool. I think it intersects really well with some of the disability studies coursework I want to pursue.
It's amazing.
Last week, we had it because this is online, but I'm taking it in person in the fall. But we got to the unit where we're learning how to speak in cursive, which I didn't know was a
I had
thing.
no idea. Is it for like formal conversations? Like,
So actually, they recommend everyone to sign in cursive, to avoid like carpal tunnel risk and like hand strain. But it's basically it will like morph the original signs and make it like less effortful or like less of emotion. Change the signer a little bit. So like E will go from this to like if you're doing a sign with 2 letters before, you can just like do this.
oh, that's really interesting. That's really cool that they're thinking like that they've figured out. That there's like a whole other version that just like flows more naturally, I guess.
Yeah, and it's dependent on the first letter of the word or like the letters preceding the letter you're trying to communicate. So there can be a lot of variations for how you write in cursive for a certain letter, which is really interesting. But at first I was kind of intimidated, and I was like, I'm like barely just mastered the actual alphabet. So
Oh, that's amazing. That's so cool.
but it's interesting. I think my favorite parts are probably just learning about like deaf culture and just like little things like, Texas has its own sign for the word what, or
There's like different dialects. That's really cool.
there are different dialects, and then certain words like business, I think, has over 4 like signs and like things you can do, or like family has 6. So
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, you should like whenever I was on a project where we were interviewing, we were doing all these stakeholder interviews, and one of my conversations was with a woman who is deaf, and I hadn't even thought about like how do you have an interview with someone who's hard of hearing. Because I'd never been in that position before, especially, and it was like a Zoom call. And so we had a translator join our call who was able to, translate what I was saying to the person I was speaking with and like get her response back to us. It was so amazing. I mean, they cover it also on, do you watch The Pit? Have you
No.
seen it?
I've been it a few times actually.
It's so good. But they had it on that show. They had a patient who was hard of hearing, and everyone was like, "Oh, why can't they just talk using a notepad? Like communicate using like writing down things on a notepad?" But it is like you have to. It's treating patients with respect too, and like if you can bring in a translator, bring in like there are different tools available to help make those interactions like right, or like doing them in a way that's respectful to the patient. It's really, really neat.
But I think I was expecting it to be easier because I've learned a few other languages before, but I mean, it's definitely pretty complex. And then, the sentence structure being a lot different than English.
Yeah. What other languages do you speak?
I speak Gujarati, so that's like the mother tongue.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's mainly just spoken in Gujarat, a state in India.
Yeah.
And then in high school, I took Spanish, but I kind of took it reluctantly because in middle school I took German, and then I transferred to a school that only had Spanish.
Sucks.
So then by the time I like transferred back to school that like had more language options, I was like, it's fine. I'm already like 2 years into Spanish. Just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And then in college, I was just like, I don't know. Like I wasn't really motivated because like I needed 3 semesters as a requirement, but I was just like, I don't know, like not feeling super passionate about all of them. And then I started getting into like disability studies last semester, and I was like, okay, we got it now.
Oh my gosh. That's what you should, you should do more. Like I don't know. I feel like I tell everyone to talk to Sarah Kerrigan, my friend and business partner. But she's a health communication. She's got her MPH. But she's like a health communications expert and thinks a lot about she thinks a lot about like accessibility, and I mean she's really pushed that for everything that we do. And she's just a very smart and caring person, and like very, very thoughtful. I feel like y'all would get along really well. She's like texted me since we've been chatting, and but she's thought a lot about that as it relates to, this is more on like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the best way to. She's worked with like tribal nations, and like one of the things I've worked on a past project. Again, we're doing these stakeholder interviews, trying to understand how behavioral health clinicians are collecting data for state reporting needs. And it was interesting talking to some of these tribal communities because they're like I guess these communities are more like storytelling, like they just have different ways of communicating, and some of it doesn't necessarily like align with typical like reporting standards. And so how do you kind of meet people again? How do you meet patients where they're at?
That's really cool that she's worked with tribal communities because one of the posts on my blog was actually just a quick like history synopsis of Native American healthcare and like
Yeah,
the Indian Service Agency,
yeah,
like
IHS,
service, yeah.
yeah, Indian
Um,
Health Services, yeah,
I,
or yeah,
I yeah, I kind of forgot the name actually. Well, it used to be the Indian Medical Service. Then,
yeah. You should talk to Sarah. She's great. Kelly also knows Sarah. Um, Happy to make that introduction. I'll write that down.
have you checked out the blog?
I need to. I'm so sorry. I've been like drowning the past week. And I'm really embarrassed that I haven't checked it out yet, but I'm gonna check it out. I'll check it out right after this.
Okay. Cool. It is also like a passion. Well, it started as a passion project, kind of, and then I found out that for my major's final project, like you have to do 3 credit hours, but you can repeat it up to 9. And then I was like, wait, like what if I just like kept investing a ton of time in like the blog/podcast, and then
Yeah.
you don't have to take like 2 actual classes?
Yeah, you should. It's so smart. Well, also, but it creates a portfolio, like depending on, I mean, you basically have a portfolio of your work online, which is great as you're thinking about like where you might want to end up. I think everyone should do, I think everyone should do thought leadership. I think folks should write about, like, if you're learning about something. I'm not a natural like writer by any means. Also, no one is going to criticize you. Like, if people say anything bad, then that's engagement, and who cares? Like, I think it's amazing when people like, I try to be, again, everything I try to do it like authentically and not, I just try not to be like fake, or I try to be very much motivated by things that I'm genuinely curious about. And it's fun to learn. Like, if you've got the time, learn about whatever you find interesting. And then isn't it like, I think it's great to share that out to people. And like, and again, maybe that's just like my ADHD brain, but I'm like, it's a fun, I think what you're doing is awesome. A ton of respect for doing the podcast piece too, because I've gone back and forth on we should start a podcast, and I just haven't been able to like commit to it yet. What have been what have been some of the like unexpected topics that have come up that you've been like, oh, this is really fascinating, like as you've been diving in either through the blog or through the podcast?
So I think one of the most fascinating ones was just the various tools that have been developed by the World Health Organization, or, the United Nations, just to work on advancing migrant health. So the WHO developed like a mental health resource that, trains users in behavioral activation, psychoeducation, stress management, positive self-talk, relapse intervention, and then, even a screening tool used in telepsychiatry that allows for PTSD screening, and even tools like for like war zones, like creating like an EHR portal for them. So
That's so funny. I was thinking about that as I love the World Cup so much. I'm gonna be really upset when it's over on Sunday. But one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is like, okay, well, we're working across 3 different countries. How is like, how are records being shared as patient, or as patients, as players play across 3 different countries? In reality, teams are just keeping the medical like they have their own medical records that they're carrying with them. But it is like an interesting exercise as we think about, I mean, I was at Ponce City Market the other day for a meeting or a lunch meeting. And this was the day before England was playing. And there were so many people in their English kits, their jerseys. And I was talking to someone who he and his son had been following the England team. And so there's a lot of passionate fans that have gone and seen matches in like 3 different countries. And like what happens when the fan, like when one of these fans gets sick. I think it's a bit of, I think what just happens is it's a shit show right now, but but it is something as you think about, like, hopefully we'll have a better solution where interoperable, like what I've always thought about is how I can use my credit card in like any country. Doesn't really matter. Like I've never been to a country where my credit card doesn't work. I mean, I'm sure there are countries like, but anywhere I've traveled in the world, I've been able to use my credit card, and patient records should be the same. If I get sick, like whenever I was in France for a school year, like I got sick at one point. How do I, like, if I were to go back and spend time over there and I found myself sick again, like how do I make sure that my records are accessible? Yeah. It's messy right now. There's not an easy solution, but we should have healthcare be like ATMs where any provider in the world can access your records if they need to.
Yeah, I saw that France and like some other nations as well. Like you'll have a card and that has all your info, and you just take that.
Yeah,
there's healthcare orgs.
Yeah, the carte vitale. Yeah, it's really they have it down. They've got that process that works well over there.
Definitely very interesting. This was the EHR system I was talking about earlier. The UN developed one to serve Palestinian refugees seeking primary care. So it had an appointment system, medicine analysis tools, and then auto-populated prescription forms based on clinical guidelines. So
that's amazing. Yeah.
I thought this was all really cool. I mean, I had just gotten a book on migrant health because I was like, that sounds pretty interesting. And then I don't think I would have been able to take an undergrad class in it. It wasn't being offered, at least. But I mean, it's all these like niche areas we don't think about. The Native American healthcare one actually made me really angry.
Yeah, it's really upsetting. Like, yeah, because
it was specifically focusing on 1908 to 1955. So
that's like yeah.
So it was just like over and over. You're just seeing like all these public health metrics, like the government's keeping tabs of, and then Congress being like, well, we're just still going to continue underfunding their healthcare system. So
yeah, it's really like infuriating. Our history with that is still like really not good.
Yeah, but the podcast has been really interesting. This is the 3rd one that's being recorded. And I think I'm just going to publish an article about an interview I had with a CDC lawyer that
awesome.
Worked in their biosafety department. So, and like
really cool.
Yeah, just like containing various viruses, and then she worked on like making sure the quarantine orders like for COVID and hantavirus. There was like strong legal precedence for like the intensity of those orders. So
yeah,
that was really cool. I was like, that's so cool. Like, I would love your job. And she's like, well, it's really hard to get to work in the legal department. And
oh yeah, especially
she's like, well, the only times people leave are like if they retire or like pass away. So yeah. So I was like, okay, great.
I mean, who knows? It also like depends on like it's like the administration, and right now is not good. But I do have to jump. I realized it's 1:00. I'm happy to chat again, and I would love to introduce you to Sarah. She's super smart and just overall love working with her.
Yep. That sounds awesome. See you on Thursday.
Oh yeah, I'll see you on Thursday. Awesome. Cool. I'll see you then, okay?
Okay, bye.
Bye.